Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. You know the deal, folks. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And today is day one of training camp for the Washington Commanders. So this is my first daily practice report. Don't forget, though, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about Sam Howell, what he thinks of what some people outside Washington are saying about him. I'll get to that in a few minutes. Also, I will be doing reports after every practice. And in fact, on Friday, I will be doing a live podcast to help inform you better of what's going on in training camp. So if you have any questions, join me Friday afternoon. It's going to be around 1:30 or 2. I will tell you on Thursday what time it'll be, and you'll have a heads up. And I know you might be at work, but you can play a little hooky. It's Friday. It's okay. But join me there. And again, it'll be up on the YouTube page right away, so you can check out all that content. So lots going on here. And it's funny because this place looks dramatically different. I'm going to try and put some pictures up of what it looks like onto the YouTube page. So hopefully you see it there. Because it looks different, man. It's a professional looking outfit right now, and it's different. You have stands over here where you got several thousand, a couple thousand seats that for fans. You have some VIP seating. Some of it's covered. I'm sitting in a VIP area right now. It is covered, which you need because it's going to get into the upper 90s over the next several days, not during practices though. So a little bit different, but anyway, so it looks different, and the players noticed it. The players were excited about that because you come out to this facility and they know they don't have one of the best facilities in the NFL. Little things like this can help help them feel just a little bit better. But I think they also know that more fans are probably going to be coming because today was closed to the fans. So more fans will be coming to accommodate more. It'll get them, and that's going to create a better vibe and atmosphere for the players. And a lot of that is some of that for the players. A lot of it internally is because of how they feel about their roster and how they feel about each other. But there's also obviously a big time vibe because of the change in ownership, starting with, of course, Josh Harris in and dancing on or out. Speaking of Harris, he was at practice today, standing on the sidelines, talking to former Washington Redskin quarterback Joe Theismann for most of the workout. One of Harris's limited partners, Mitchell Rales, he also was in attendance. After practice, Harris was introduced to the players. They gave him a nice round of applause. He was expected to address them later during a team meeting. All things have been pretty positive so far, obviously. And one of the things Antonio Gibson said afterwards is that, what he hopes now is he said he's heard for a couple of years how a lot of fans don't want to come out because of X, Y, and Z. And he's like, I'm not going to say it, but we all know who he's talking about. And he said, that they would get negative comments on tweets because of what was going on in the organization. Now, he said he's hoping that all those fans now are able to feel like they can come out and support the team again. So there you go. Anyway, so that created excitement. Harris is expected to be here again on Thursday when the fans will start showing up. Now, let's get to what happened on the field, starting with a positive development regarding some players coming off injuries. You had or injury situations. Logan Thomas, Chase Young, no more knee braces. That's a positive development for each of them as they continue to recover or work their way back from their 2021 very severe knee injuries. And that's a good sign. We talked a lot about Thomas in the spring because he was here at the OTAs and minicamp. Chase Young was not. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Thomas at this point, but I will go to Chase Young for a minute. By the way, before I go on, keep in mind, they were in shell stay. There's no pads. So until you put pads on, all this stuff is just an extension of OTAs and minicamp. And so you have to take everything with a grain of salt as far as who really stood out and who did this and who that. Because everything changes when the pads come on, when they go up and they work out against the Baltimore Ravens, when they have preseason games. That's when things start to separate even more. But what you do look for are some traits and little things that you can pick up on to say that's a good development. For Chase Young, to me, the positive development is the way, not just he's getting off the ball, and everybody uses the word spry. He looks spry coming off the ball, and I'll agree with that. But he's getting off the ball well. But what he's not doing is stutter stepping. And again, today, when I was watching him, I didn't see that. And what I saw instead was a guy who was getting into the offensive line. In this case, it was Charles Leno. And again, When you have no pads on, it's a little bit harder for the offensive linemen. They can't really, it's hard to really fully engage the way they want to. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But with Young, though, I think the positive aspect for him was the way he was approaching it, and when he used a couple good hand movements to get around Leno one time, worked his way inside one time, would have applied pressure on a couple of throws. So that's a good sign for him. He just needs to do it all camp and all season, nothing more than that. But it was a good first day for Young. Let's go to Emmanuel Forbes, the rookie corner. We all know that he's a smaller guy, or a skinnier guy, not small as much as just skinny. So how are receivers going to approach him? Well, one of the first plays where I watched him, it was the receiver Byron Pringle, who was signed earlier this week. And the first thing he did, he was physical with Forbes. And you could see him kind of back Forbes off just a little bit. Forbes kind of leaned back just a bit. But what I liked is that he was able to recover and still was able to make a play on him and keep him covered. But it did, like, that is something to watch going forward. I saw someone else try to do that, and he worked his way around to the side as he was taught to do in the spring. And then there was another time where his recovery speed and his length will play a big factor in him being, in his success. And there was one play where Terry McLaurin runs an out and then comes back, or runs inside, works his way back out, and he shakes Forbes at the line. Forbes works back inside to get him, and then McLaurin cuts back outside. But the angle that Forbes took and the length forced a throw by Sam Howell. Now, it wasn't a bad throw. He's actually ended up, I believe it, if I remember right, it ended up to be completed, but it was a tougher throw because of the way Forbes responded to the route and the way he reacted and the length and all that. And it would have been only a few yards on the catch. So it wasn't a huge play. And I think he did a nice job again with that length, with the recovery speed. You saw that a couple times with him. There's another time where defensive backs coach Brent Visselmeyer asked him if to play after a route. He covered a route by McLaurin. He said, "Hey, what does he always do at the top of the route?" And I couldn't hear what Forbes said, but Visselmeyer responded, "Exactly." So in other words, he knew, and he knew what he was supposed to be looking for. Again, another good sign. By the way, when they worked with their three corners, Benjamin St-Juste was the guy in the slot, and that's what I would expect. I mean, they like Forbes on the outside. They like Kendall Fuller on the outside, and they liked Benjamin St-Juste on the inside entering last year. It was only when William Jackson showed he couldn't play in this defense that they had to shift St-Juste to the outside. I want to stick with the defensive backs for a minute because Quan Martin just, to me, always jumps out. He's impressed the coaches with, they feel like he's a very smart player. When I watch him, and he covered in the slot today, what I really like about him is he's very patient off the line. His feet are settled, and I think that gives him a chance to react properly to whatever route happens to be run. I saw that a couple times, just something to pay attention to as camp moves forward. But I think that that guy's going to end up to be a good pick for them. But it's that, and I think he's versatile, he's smart, but I really like his footwork at the line when he's covering in the slot. Whether it's against the receiver, which I saw him against Dax Milne a few times, or against the tight end, I think he does a nice job. I think he understands how to play different guys and what he needs to do.
The adventure park is ziplining through the trees. It's climbing from platform to platform. It's even an axe throwing competition with your friends. But what the adventure park really is opportunity. Reconnecting with friends and family, accomplishing a challenge, and making lasting memories. So book your visit today and choose your own adventure.
Linebacker Jamin Davis worked a lot with the second unit. That's not a surprise. Don't take it as anything other than the guy is still working his way back in. He missed a lot of the spring after a minor knee procedure. He was here with the rookies over the weekend because he missed all that time. And I think at first he was like, "Why am I here?" And they tell him, "Listen, you missed all this time. We need you to get back up to speed before the veterans get here." So that'll just be a matter of time. They kind of did something like that with Cody Barton in the spring, where they let him work with the twos to work his way in there while the ones were working a lot faster than he was able to go at that point. Khaleke Hudson was in there with Cody Barton when they were working with the ones. And Hudson's a guy, again, that I've talked a lot about in the spring, took a big step. So there you go. I saw with Davis a couple times. I saw two routes in particular. One time, I think he thought he did a nice job against Antonio Gibson coming out of the backfield, where he jumps to the outside, gets the leverage. He has to work inside on that, but he was ready for a good job. But on one of the next plays, Jonathan Williams gets him on an outside route, don't think the leverage was there. And that's something that he's had to work on in the past. Also, I think running back Brian Robinson, had the catch of the day. It was a little rail route down the sidelines from Sam Howell working against Khaleke Hudson. And it was a ball he had to reach out, kind of grab it with one arm, pull it in, and he had to kind of tap his feet down to get it in. Craig Hoffman was standing right beside me. Of course, 106.7, used to cover the team. He said he caught the ball. He said he got his feet in. I said he caught the ball. We combined. We ruled it. That was a catch. I don't know what the offensive guys all said it was good because it was on their side. Defensive guys said no, but I think it was a catch. But it was a really nice job by Robinson. And I think that's an area where they hope he can build on his game. Speaking of the running backs, and we talked to Antonio Gibson. He said that he views himself as a third down back. I think he's a little bit more than that because he can do more than that, but that's how his role is right now. And then the other guy to watch is Chris Rodriguez. One of the things to watch with Rodriguez this summer is his blocking, because that's something I think the coaches feel if he can do that, it really adds something to that defensive backfield in particular. Sam Howell. Well, Sam Howell's obviously the guy, right? That he's the guy coming into camp. It's his job to lose. We all know that. I did ask him in the press conference today, if, we all know, like outside here, there still seems to be that amazement that really Sam Howell. And so I kind of asked him if he's heard anything about some of the comments outside or maybe some of the, more not the comments, more the surprise by people that are they really going with Sam Howell? And the answer has always been, yes, they've said this from the start. So when I asked Howell about that, he said, well, what he really gets, what he gets more than anything are messages from his friends about his 66 Madden rating. So that I think chafes him probably a little bit more, but he said, he goes, I'm not surprised that people that they might think this is crazy because I hardly played and, in my draft status as a 5th round pick. But he also said, I couldn't care. Well, he said, I could care less. What he meant to say is I couldn't care less about what others outside here are saying. It only matters what they're saying in the building. And I'll finish that off. In the building, they have a lot of confidence in what Howell can become. They just don't like me. They don't know when he'll be good, but I think they certainly believe he will be good. But it's hard to say when. He's a young quarterback who's thrown 19 passes in the NFL. It takes time. Anyway, today I thought he was all right. I think the quarterbacks at times, the offense was kind of rough at times there. I think people had like 4 picks, 3 of them by Jake Fromm. So, he's their third quarterback. But Howell, the focus is on Howell, and then Brissett had 1. Sometimes they're tip passes. You don't always know what the receivers are supposed to be doing or where the quarterback's supposed to be going. So you always have to kind of balance that out. With Howell, the thing I still like with him is the timing, everything. And I also like, the way he's handling the huddle. And so that's all good. But the timing of his throws in this, whether it's 7-on-7, even in the full team stuff, not too bad. He had a really nice throw to Logan Thomas down the left. I think it was on a crosser to the left, puts it up high where only he can get it. And that was against Derek Forrest. So Forrest's coverage wasn't bad, but the ball was right there. And you see that a few times with him where he knows exactly where to put it, whether to get a guy to turn into more yards after the catch or away from danger. And I think Brissett does a pretty good job with that as well. So there you go. And we'll get into Howell a lot more throughout training camp. So I'm trying to give you some other guys. Center Ricky Stromberg works a lot with, sometimes with 2, sometimes with 3s. You have Tyler Larson there working. You have, of course, Nick Gates there working. So, we'll just see how all that shakes out. And obviously, I do expect Stromberg to be their backup center because that's why they drafted him in the 3rd round. Sadiq Charles works a left guard. You had Braden Daniels working with the 3rd team as left tackle. Still see a lot of need to improve in his technique. His footwork is good. His athleticism is good, but he still bends a lot when he gets in trouble, and that leads to bigger issues. Chris Paul, backup guard. One thing to watch this summer, I'm curious to see if they give Paul any reps at tackle. That's something I heard that might happen. So I'll be curious if he does that. It adds to his value, but I think they just want to see, can he also do that? So that's just something to watch as a possibility down the road in practice. And a couple more things. One of the things that I really liked today when you watch it is just the way the receivers get to their spot on the line after breaking the huddle. A little bit more urgency than I've seen here in the past. And I think you can credit Eric Bieniemy for that. And I think that's a direct result of what he emphasizes, because there are times where he's yelling at guys to run off the field as they're coming off. And I mean, he's serious about that too. And I think the other Bieniemy update is that early in the practice, he yelled at one receiver, not sure which one it was, but he yelled at him, don't slow down. It's work time. That's a message to the receiver. It's a message to everybody else. That's what he expects from them. It's what he expects from himself. And, so that's, that, like I said, the urgency is good. And even Ron Rivera noted, like the tempo. Now we'll see where the tempo is after you've been out in the 90+ degree heat for several days and you start to drag. On the day one, I thought the tempo was pretty good. And then you have to wonder, like, how does that tempo increase when the fans show up on Thursday, as they are going to do? And I think the players are very excited about what's going on here, and especially with the fans maybe being a lot more, feeling more like they can support them again, and how that atmosphere, that energy can trickle down to them. One thing I think they want to watch is that the combination of that, their excitement, the fans being there, and Bieniemy's intensity. Do you have to officiate that practice if you're the coaches? And make sure that guys aren't getting too out of control. Listen, they're not going to have pads on tomorrow, so there's only so much that can happen. But I think it's just funny because that's where we're at with things. There is excitement about how good this team will be. Who the hell knows? It's day one, but that's where we go. And really, folks, that's all I got for the day one. Be back with another practice report on Thursday, and again, a live podcast episode on Friday. You can join us there. And again, I'll tell you whether it's 1:30 or 2:00 Eastern time. There you go, folks. That's it. Appreciate you tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.